Hey everyone, welcome back to The Explainer. I'm host Speaker, and today we're tearing into the absolute chaos of a high-stakes supernatural ritual. We're going to look at exactly how this specific brand of magic is supposed to work, and more importantly, why this particular seance went completely, violently off the rails. We've got our hands on a fascinating source document that details a paranormal extraction gone terribly wrong, and we're going to reconstruct the whole thing step by step. Okay, let's kick things off with a rather chilling line. When the earth and all that is in it disappear, eternity belongs to me. Those are the haunting words from a Russian poem called Eternity, which is a massive key in this whole supernatural narrative. It was actually penned long ago by Madame Lupenski. She's a spirit who is currently trapped inside this incredibly powerful artifact, known as the McConnell's Odd Science Curiosities Oracle Book. So, this brings us to the core mystery of today's explainer. How exactly do you free a trapped soul from an indestructible oracle? And honestly, what happens when that oracle decides to fight back? We are dissecting a ritual that was deliberately kept a total secret from the very people participating in it. Picture this, a room of 13 people, an ancient text, and a spirit absolutely desperate for the light. All right, phase 1, the seance preparation and the rules of magic. Right, so to make sense of the utter chaos that drops later, we've got to unpack the really methodical setup orchestrated by Adrian Russell and Lana in the Vista parlor. The whole thing kicks off with a strict protocol of verification. Adrian essentially interrogates the spirit, who, by the way, is currently speaking through the completely motionless possessed body of a woman named Carla Richards. The spirit confirms her birth name, Tatiana Zita in her birthplace in Russia. Now, this isn't just polite parlor chat, it's a mandatory grounding technique, right? They absolutely have to confirm her true identity and make sure she is 100% ready to be freed before any magic is actually cast. Now, what's really wild in the source material is the sheer level of secrecy here. Adrian explicitly tells the seance group that the plan was hidden from them on purpose. Why? Because the mechanics of the spell are incredibly dense, and explaining it would just cause dangerous distractions. In a highly volatile framework like this, ignorance is actually used as a tool for focus. Adrian makes it crystal clear that the 13 members present are not active participants. They are essentially passive batteries. Their job is to take a leap of faith, stay completely silent, and act purely as a unified group of minds, while Lana alone handles the physical artifacts. So the big takeaway here is that they aren't just improvising this out of thin air. They are using an established, ancient, Hellenistic Egyptian method. This specific framework has a massive history behind it for freeing trapped spirits from magical encapsulations, like books or bottles. It's not a free-for-all. It requires absolute order, pinpoint precision, and strict adherence to ancient rules. And this brings up a brilliant rule in the lore. Lana doesn't actually need to be some incredibly powerful sorcerer. The universal key to unlock this book is blood kinship. Her direct genetic lineage as Madame Lupenski's granddaughter is quite literally the only thing that matters. In antiquity, shared blood carries immense spiritual weight, and that biological connection creates a natural resonance designed to bypass the Oracle book's magical defenses. Moving right along to phase 2, the bloodline ritual. With the rules locked in and the group acting as this silent, energetic anchor, let's look at the exact physical steps Lana takes. She executes this sequence flawlessly. Notice how elemental the components are. First, she places the oracle book on a sanctified square of white linen. Then, she lights a beeswax candle in a silver holder. Next, and this is intense, she pulls a silver hairpin from her hair, pierces her own finger, and drips her blood into a clay bowl of clear water, turning it this rusty orange color. She is literally offering up her own life force to the spirits. Dipping that wounded finger into the bloody water, Lana carefully traces the entire edge of the oracle book. She loudly declares she's building a sympathetic bridge directly to her grandmother's spirit. She is using the physical residue of their shared bloodline to short-circuit the magical barrier. Next, the spirit commands Lana to open the book. Now, understanding the logic here is absolutely crucial. Because the spirit's prison is a book, the rules dictate that words are the lock. To reverse the trap, Lana places a piece of paper on the open book and reads her grandmother's poem, Eternity. But here's the catch. She has to read it carefully from the end to the beginning. Reading it backwards is what finally cracks open the doorway. The very last step of Lana's prep is something called expulsion. It's this ancient act of blowing a long, deep breath to share the breath of eternal life and freedom. Pressing her forehead to the open pages, Lana breathes across the book to finalize the release. She confidently tells her grandmother she is free to proceed to the light. But, you guessed it, this is exactly where everything goes completely terrifyingly wrong.
Which brings us to Phase 3, the Oracle's resistance.
The pacing of the whole event shifts drastically right here. Instead of a peaceful, beautiful release, the Oracle book actively fights back. It absolutely refuses to be emptied. Adrian and Lana expected a peaceful transition where everyone stays safe. But reality? The book literally starts hopping and vibrating on the table. A phantom wind whips up out of nowhere, sounding like 1,000 pages turning all at once. The room's temperature completely plummets. Static electricity spikes so hard that people can see the hair on their arms standing straight up. And to top it off, the spirit of Madame Lupenski cries out that she can't leave. She's trapped by the book's immense gravity. The situation just completely devolves into pure panic and actual physical danger. Carla, who is still possessed, tilts her head back, her eyes roll completely white, and she starts choking. A guy named Lester reaches out, just trying to forcefully shut the book, and he gets blasted by this massive blue spark that burns 3 of his fingers down to a smoking, dark residue. The group just shudders. Gideon panics and tries to make a run for the elevator, but Avery violently grabs him around the neck and forces him to stay put. The meticulously planned ritual has entirely collapsed.
And that leads us into Phase 4, Intervention of the Goddess.
Just as Adrian and the group realize they are totally out of their depth, a horrifying new variable enters the mix. The pale, translucent ghost of the goddess Zoethea, who had shown up earlier in the parlor, starts floating straight for the seance table. She's gaunt, she has no teeth, and her face shows zero fear, just this cold, hard determination. But instead of attacking the vulnerable group, she forcefully hijacks the failing ritual. Barking almost like a large dog, Zoethea commands the 13 people to hold hands tightly. Remember how they were supposed to be a unified group of minds? Well, Zoethea forcibly activates that. A sentient, glowing white vapor starts coiling out of their joined hands. Zoethea acts like a massive supernatural amplifier, drawing out their collective energy, and this thick white smoke surges directly into Carla's nose and mouth. It acts as a spiritual anchor to protect her soul from getting sucked in by the Oracle's gravity. Things are happening at lightning speed now. Zoethea aggressively skips past Adrian's careful step-by-step methods. She grabs the clay bowl, dumps the remaining blood water straight onto the open pages, which lets out this loud hiss, and then she physically thrusts and pins Lana's hand onto the violently vibrating book. She does it with such terrifying strength that Lana actually faints for a second from the shock. Zoethea rouses her, and in this eerie voice, commands Lana to read the backward poem one last time.
Now we've reached Phase 5, the final discharge.
With Lana conscious again and forced to reread the poem under the sheer terrifying pressure of a goddess, we hit the climax of the ritual. Lana pushes through the absolute terror, finishes the backward incantation, and screams out her final declaration. "By the blood in my veins, I free you, Grandmama." That specific vocal trigger kicks off an immediate, massive shift in the room's supernatural physics. The entire flow of magic instantly reverses. That white vapor anchoring Carla, it snaps away and starts violently pouring directly into the roaring oracle book. The noise of those turning pages goes from a heavy wind to an absolutely deafening roar of raw power. The 13 group members are completely paralyzed. They're frozen like zombies as this thick, blinding white vapor completely swallows the table, literally choking them. All of this immense, chaotic buildup of magical energy culminates in one catastrophic moment. Suddenly, an explosive electrical discharge violently shakes the entire parlor. It's punctuated by a single, unidentified scream, and then the smoke-filled room is abruptly plunged into dead silence. The source text leaves us right there in the chilling, immediate aftermath. Out of the dark, thick smoke, we hear Freddie's subdued, haunting voice calling out, "Dee Dee, honey, are you there, baby?" He's just checking to see if his loved one is even still alive. We've just walked through the incredibly complex mechanics of an ancient Hellenistic Egyptian extraction, and we saw firsthand what happens when an artifact refuses to let go. But it leaves us with one massive, lingering question. Did that chaotic energy transfer actually free Madame Lupenski into the light, or did the Oracle's violent resistance just claim a brand new victim in the dark? Definitely something to think about the next time you hear a page turn in an empty room. Thanks for exploring this one with us on The Explainer.